Ever find yourself staring at a price tag and wondering, how did we get here? Yeah, me too, especially when it comes to military surplus firearms. These are the guns that were once mass-produced for armies around the world, built to last and affordable enough for the average collector. But these days, some of them cost more than my first car, and I'm not exaggerating. Now, don't get me wrong, I've got a soft spot for milsurps. There's something special about owning a piece of history, holding a rifle that might have seen action on the battlefield. But as much as I love them, I've also come to realize that nostalgia comes with a hefty price tag. So today we're talking about 5 milsurp rifles that I think are way overpriced. And before you grab your pitchforks, remember, this is just my take based on what's sitting in my own collection. From the iconic Grand Ping of the M1 Garand to the Mosen Nagant's legendary reputation and price inflation, we'll look at why these guns have become wallet busters. Whether you're a collector, a shooter, or just someone curious about milsurps, stick around. You might just rethink your next purchase. The Mosen Nagant. If there were a Hall of Fame for budget milsurps, this rifle would have a gold plaque. Unfortunately, that reputation hasn't aged as well as its price tag. Back in the day, these rifles were practically being given away. I remember when you could pick up a Mosen for under $100, sometimes with a crate of ammo thrown in. But now, you're looking at $400 to $1,000 depending on the variant. And if it's a Finnish Mosen or an M44 Carbine, prepare to pay double. Let's talk about features. The Mosen is chambered in 7.62 by 54R, a rimmed cartridge that's still available but not exactly convenient compared to modern calibers. Performance-wise, it's fine for what it is, a rugged bolt-action rifle that gets the job done. But let's be honest, calling it precision is a stretch. It kicks like a mule. The bolt can feel like you're arm wrestling a bear, and don't even get me started on mounting an optic. So why the skyrocketing prices? Supply and demand. The surplus imports have dried up, but the nostalgia hasn't. Everyone wants a piece of that battle-hardened history. I get it. I own one myself. But when I see refurbished 9130s going for $500, I can't help but think about what else you could buy with that money. A modern rifle chambered in a more practical cartridge? Maybe even one with a smooth bolt throw? It's hard to justify. Still, the Mosen has that old-school charm, and I get why collectors are drawn to it. But if you're buying one now, just know you're paying for history more than performance. For me, it's the quintessential overpriced milsurp. Let's move on to a rifle that's as iconic as it is expensive, the M1 Garand. If you've ever watched a World War II movie, you've seen this rifle in action and maybe even heard its famous ping when the clip ejects. Trust me, that sound alone makes you feel like a piece of history is coming alive in your hands. But does it justify the price? Not so much. The M1 is chambered in 30-06 and uses an 8-round in-block clip. It's a solid semi-auto rifle, no doubt about it. But the price? On the civilian market, these typically run around $1,500 for a decent one. Sure, there are cheaper options through the civilian marksmanship program, but good luck navigating all the paperwork and hoops to jump through. Or you can roll the dice with sketchy importers selling them for $1,000. Either way, you're still spending a premium on a rifle that, let's face it, is more of a collector's piece than a practical shooter. And here's the kicker. For the same price, you could pick up an M1A, chambered in 308 or 7.62 NATO. That's a modern rifle with external magazines, better gas systems, and readily available ammunition. Meanwhile, with the Garand, you'll need to hunt down specific M2 ball ammo or mess around with adjusting the gas system if you're using modern 30-06 loads. It's a hassle, and that's if you even plan to shoot it. Don't get me wrong, I love my Garand. It's a piece of history and an absolute joy to shoot. But is it worth $1,500 or more? From a practical standpoint, probably not. From a collector's standpoint, maybe. If you're after that historical connection, go for it. But if you're looking for function over form, there are far better options out there. Now let's talk about the German Kar 98K, a rifle that seems to carry a premium just because of where it came from. Don't get me wrong, it's an impressive piece of history. This bolt-action rifle was the workhorse of the German military during World War II, and it's chambered in 8mm Mauser, a cartridge that's got some serious punch. But here's the problem. The price tag. A decent Kar 98K from the World War II era will set you back $1,500 or more these days. And why? Because of the collector's fascination with anything German from that time period. I get it. The historical significance is undeniable, but when you break it down to pure functionality, it's hard to see how this rifle justifies its inflated cost. You can grab a Yugoslavian M48 Mauser, which is nearly identical in design and performance, for around $350. Say Mauser. 98 action, similar accuracy, just without the German eagle stamped on it. Speaking of performance, the Kar 98K is fine for what it is. It's a solid 3 MOA rifle, which was good enough for its time. But for the money people are spending, you'd think it could shoot laser beams. Even mine, which is a 1944 production model in decent condition, feels like a stretch at these prices. And let's not forget, 8mm Mauser isn't the easiest or cheapest cartridge to find these days. Collectors love these rifles for the history and the markings, and I can respect that. But the market has turned them into more of a status symbol than a practical firearm. For me, the Kar 98K is a prime example of a gun where you're paying for nostalgia and a little bit of that German mystique more than anything else. Next up, we've got the Ishapore 2A and 2A1, a rifle that's like a cousin to the classic Lee Enfield but chambered in 7.62 NATO. On paper, this seems like a smart upgrade. The cartridge is far more available and affordable than 303 British, which is often pricey and hard to find. But as practical as this rifle is, its price has climbed higher than it should. Let's talk specifics. The Ishapore looks almost identical to the No. 1 Mark III Lee Enfield, with its distinct nose cap and short bolt throw. It's got the same buttery smooth action Lee Enfields are known for, but it takes external magazines and eats a modern cartridge. Sounds great, right? The catch is the price. While a regular Lee Enfield might cost you $500 or so, the Ishapore often runs $750 or more, and I've seen them go for even higher. Why the premium? Simple. Supply and demand. People want that 7.62 NATO chambering because it's practical, and sellers know it. But here's the thing. You'd have to shoot hundreds of rounds to recoup the cost difference in ammo savings. Sure, 7.62 NATO is cheaper, but unless you're firing this thing constantly, it doesn't balance out. Don't get me wrong, it's a great rifle. It's robust, reliable, and has all the perks of the Lee Enfield system. But at 50%, more than a standard 303 variant, it feels like you're paying extra for the convenience of modern ammunition. And let's be honest, in the world of milsurps, practicality isn't always what drives up the price. It's what people are willing to pay for. So, while I love my Ishapore and appreciate its advantages, it's hard not to call it overpriced for what it is. It's a fantastic shooter, no doubt, but the inflated cost makes it a tough sell unless you're a die-hard fan of the Lee Enfield system. Finally, we come to the M1 Carbine, a rifle that I both love and hate at the same time. Love it because of its history and lightweight design. Hate it because, honestly, it feels overpriced for what you're getting. Let's break it down. The M1 Carbine is chambered in .30 carbine, a cartridge that packs about as much punch as a .357 Magnum from a revolver. Decent for its time, but underwhelming by today's standards. It was designed to give troops a compact, lightweight firearm that was easier to handle than a full-sized battle rifle. And it did that job well. But when you look at the current market prices, it's hard not to wince. Even a beat-up, war-weary M1 Carbine will cost you over $1,000 these days. If it's in good shape or has some historical significance, you're looking at $1,500 or more. And for what? A pistol-caliber carbine with questionable reliability unless you're lucky enough to find one that's been well maintained. Plus, .30 carbine ammo isn't exactly growing on trees these days. Surplus is drying up, and what's left is often expensive. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot to like about the M1 Carbine. It's lightweight, easy to carry, and has a certain charm that you just can't replicate with modern firearms. But when I compare it to other options in the same price range, it's hard to justify the cost. For $1,500, you could pick up a high-quality AR-15 or a modern PCC that's more reliable, easier to maintain, and uses ammo you can actually find at a reasonable price. Still, I can't deny the M1 Carbine's historical significance. Owning one feels like holding a piece of World War II in your hands. But as much as I appreciate its role in history, it's just not a practical choice in today's market. At least not at these prices. For collectors, it's a must-have. For everyone else, maybe think twice before shelling out that kind of cash. Alright, so there you have it. 5 Milsurp rifles that, while undeniably cool and historically significant, are overpriced in today's market. From the Mosen Nagant's inflated nostalgia to the M1 Garand's collector mystique, each of these guns carries a price tag that makes you stop and wonder, am I buying a piece of history or just a hyped-up relic? Here's the thing, I don't regret owning any of these rifles. They each have a story to tell, a unique place in history, and honestly, they're just fun to shoot. But when you compare their price tags to modern alternatives, it's hard to ignore the gap in value. Whether it's the practicality of the Ishapore 2A, the iconic ping of the M1 Garand, or the collector allure of the Kar 98K, there's no denying these rifles have a strong pull for enthusiasts like me. But let's face it, military surplus firearms are no longer the budget-friendly treasures they used to be. The market has shifted, with dwindling supply and surging demand driving up prices. And while I can appreciate the historical charm of these guns, I think it's important to go in with your eyes open, know what you're buying and why. If you're a collector looking to preserve history, go for it. But if you're after practicality, there are better options for the money. So, what do you think? Did I miss a Milsurp that should have made this list? Or do you disagree with my take on these classics? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you enjoyed this dive into overpriced history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, happy collecting, and I'll see you in the next video.
And when you manufacture them, you don't skimp on details like the